Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UX Lounge, brought to you by students of the University of Toronto's Faculty of Information and Department of Computer Science. On the student side, we have Ritika Sharma, Joyce Fung, Simran Singh, and myself, Roshni Thawani, here today.
In hopes of taking our learnings outside of the classroom, we connect with industry professionals to learn about their day-to-day, as well as life reflections that may help student community achieve their UX career goals.
We thank our guests for generously volunteering their time. Here at the UX Lounge, we look to learn about our guests' journey through UX and their experiences in the industry. Let's welcome Khaliya McCall, who is a UX research recruiter for creative people. She hires top UX research talent for impactful startups and has a lot of insights we're eager to learn from.
Khaliya also brings forth like a wealth of knowledge and experience in UX recruitment. She's built and had awesome experiences in the last 7 years working across tech, business development, sales, fashion, and now she's got incredible insights for our keen UX researchers and what up and coming companies are looking for in New York and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us today, and Khaliya, we're so excited to have you at the UX Lounge and learn from your experiences.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Okay, let's start off with a super easy question. Tell me all about yourself, or a little bit about yourself and your current role for creative people.
So my name is Khaliya, and I am the design/UX research agent here at Creative People. Creative People was created about 4.5 years ago by our CEO and co-founder, Daniel Cole. He had spent over 15 years working at this majorly transactional agency. And so when he created Creative People, it was with the intentions of building good relationships with people so that whether it was like now or in the future, you are well connected to someone who was specifically designed to your vertical. And when I heard of Creative People and the work that they were doing and how they were really humanizing the experience, I was like, I have to be a part of this. And so I joined the team and I loved it ever since. Prior to that, I was working in, like you said, a slew of industries, and nonprofit work being one of my longest stints in a number of nonprofits, but also in the fashion world. And yeah, I think this job allows me to incorporate everything that I truly love and a lot of the skills that I've learned over the last 7 years of working professionally into one. And it's great to connect with people and be a part of a community that is so interesting. I'm going to school and my last semester actually as well. And so one of my minors is psychology. And so I feel like in UX research, that's where majority of people's backgrounds come from. And it's so great to converse with like-minded people and really dive deep into what people's pain points are, pleasure points are, and just get a feel more for other humans. And so that's a little bit about me and my background. But yeah, thank you so much for asking.
Yeah, I love how your background has so many intersections and interests. I feel like UX is the perfect combo for someone who doesn't know what they want to do because you can do a little bit of everything too. So, you got a little bit of everything there. And how's it like doing that in New York?
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. New York is the best, most interesting place to be a UX researcher, in my opinion, only because the amount of diversity that is here is astronomical. And so I feel like the measurements or the space for biases is very much less than if you're going to a place that doesn't have as much diversity. And working and living in New York is it's truly what you see. It's not truly like what you see in the movies, but it's kind of the same feeling that you get when you wake up and you're traveling, you're on the subway shuts down, you're like, oh my gosh, you get in a taxi, you're like, this is overpriced. It's like the movies, but it's not. But it's been an incredible experience. I definitely think it helped shaped the woman I am today and the businesswoman that I am today. And had I not been in New York, I don't think I would be as open and as strategic and as flexible as you have to be when you live in New York and are in research or even in the professional field. You learn to go with the ebbs and flows.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I think when I first learned about you, I was very excited about, UX recruitment and learning a bit more about that, because I think when I hear about recruitment, I'm always like, oh, like HR, but UX recruitment is very specific. So very excited to learn more about your journey there. What inspired you to work in UX recruitment, and how did you, kind of navigate that path and to where you are right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Daniel Cole is an incredible leader, and I don't just say that because he's my CEO. I say that because he honestly cares so much, not just about his business, but like each and every one of his recruiters. And it shows by just the way that he's like helped mold us into the recruiters that we are today. And we really don't like to, we like to think of ourselves as agents, right? Because an agent has your back, has your best interest at heart. And he has created this like community, and I ended up being a part of the creative community on LinkedIn. And I met Whitney, who is one of my coworkers now, and I reached out to her and I was just like, hey, like I'm a creative. I love other creatives. Like I would love to be a part of what you guys like do in some sort. So originally I was going for like them to place me somewhere. And then Whitney and I had such a great conversation. And she's like, we're hiring, right? And I was like, are we now? And so I jumped at the chance, and I absolutely love the decisions that I made and the team I'm part of now. I do have like a little bit of like a background in recruitment, but not really. I like literally a 2-month stint, but prior to this, he actually introduced me to the way that he was like conducting the business, which was like being like a niche in a niche market. And he was like, I think this field would be really great for you. It just seems like something that like you'd be really great at. Do you trust me? And I was like, absolutely. And I like completely immersed myself in this market. I realized that I'm a part of this market, and like I love it so much. It's been a great journey so far, and I'm so excited to see where it goes from here.
That's awesome. And I do believe that the people you work with can really make or break your experience in a company. But can you tell us a little bit more about what Creative People is, what they do, what it's about?
Yes, absolutely. So being that Creative People is like a startup agency, a lot of people are like, what does that look like? You hear all these like crazy stories of what startups are like. And like when you go into one, you're like tiptoeing, you're like, okay, is it going to be just like everyone says? Is it going to be like the Wolf of Wall Street? Is it going to be KPI driven? Like what's going on? And it was completely like nothing I ever thought it would be. Like I think what they've done here in community building is so special, because literally, I think this is the first job I've ever been at where they like come truly as you are. Like they believe in who you are as a person so much that they don't want you to just be like Khaliya the agent and Khaliya the person and then Khaliya the model. Like be who you are at every moment of time in the day. And so it's create this like really safe space for me and all my coworkers. And it also just like behind the scenes is like a really supportive family, like truly supportive, like down to like the nitty gritty, personal and professionally. Our growth is important to them, every single one of our team leaders, not just like professionally, but personally. And I think they've done a really good job at like allowing you to bring in some personal aspects, but keep it professional, but be able to build on both sides. And I think that's something that is really, really like amazing and astounding.
Absolutely. And I love that you touched on what happens behind the scenes, because I was just going to ask you questions about that, but I'm glad you covered it already. But I did want to ask, what should candidates look for when working with talent agencies? Like, do you think there are any specific red flags or green flags that you can talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that when you're working with an agency, it's very important to kind of like read the room of your conversations. I like to say that you can know if you're gonna like mesh well with someone within the first 10 minutes of a conversation. Like, are they actually listening to you? Everybody, I don't want to say everybody recruits differently, but like we definitely recruit differently here at Creative People. And so everyone recruits differently, and it's just about like what you feel comfortable in that kind of space. Like, do you feel the most supportive? Like, you're looking for your green flags that you should definitely be looking for is how supported do you feel? How heard do you feel? Are you feeling like you can trust them with any kind of tidbit of information? Like, a recruiter is really there to represent you, and if you don't feel like they're going to represent you in the most accurate light, that's a red flag. Like, I don't think that's a recruiter you should be working with. And there are these stigmas about recruiters, But not all recruiters are the same. There are good recruiters out there. There are recruiters who are still growing into like the kind of recruiter they want to be. So like, just be sure to like give understanding and grace, but also know when to like say, okay, this isn't the recruiter for me.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool to learn about. Like, I think recruiting is like one of those things, like there's so many different ways you can approach it. There's so many different like events, and like depending on like the sector you're in, like I think you talked about like you were in startups, like large businesses, digital agencies, and like freelance clients as well.
Yep.
For like our listeners who are like, unsure of like specifically within like UX, like what area to explore in, and when they're speaking with these agencies or just like in general looking to explore UX, like I guess what advice would you share with our audience there?
So I feel like you could take multiple approaches to this, right? So like if you are a recent graduate and you're looking to figure out what your next steps are, there are some startup agencies that I think would be a great way for you to like, segue into the mainstream. A lot of people, especially in the UXR field, seem to get stuck in like academia and like have a big struggle branching out. I think positioning yourself in the way that you like really talk up your skills will help with that. But yeah, so I think also like knowing what kind of team you want to join, right? So like if you don't mind doing the work solely, that can be a startup, right? If you want to grow with a team and like have the support in case you do fall, right? That could still be a startup with a strong design leader, or it could be you being a part of a team. So you'll want to be a part of larger agencies or larger businesses. And then with freelance, I think like if you want to figure out like what industry is truly for you, that's a great way to go, right? So you can start by doing part-time for multiple industries and figuring out which one you like the best. And then, you also evolve as a person over time. So freelance allows you to continue to evolve and figure out what you actually like until you can submit into yourself like, okay, this is the kind of research that I love to do. These are the kind of industries I really love to work for. I think it's time for me to look for a FTE opportunity.
Those are awesome pieces of advice. Like honestly, like at the scale from like 0 to 1, like those are two great ways to explore and then also get experience along the way.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
And now I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit to ask you about challenges you faced in your career. I know you were kind of speaking earlier to those different environments that you could potentially work in.
Yeah.
But what challenges have you faced in your career, and what principles have you applied to overcome them?
Some challenges I faced in my career definitely have been just like fitting in and feeling like people take me seriously. I've always been the youngest person at the companies I've worked for. I started in a Fortune 500 when I was like 15, 16 years old, like the youngest person on an internship. So like, a lot of people like thought my opinions were just very much like, okay, grab coffee kind of thing. And I'm always like, no, but I'm noticing these numbers are off. Like someone listen to me. And my advice to people who like are coming after me or are there now is like, if you know your shit, own your shit. Like I had to learn that people may not believe me, but like if I do my hardest and I know what I'm talking about, as long as I've stated it and I've been true to myself, like that's all I can do. Like I had to learn like when to like let go, right? Because I can only control but so much. So yeah, that's like one of the main things. I think another challenge that I faced is just kind of like the standard sexism, racism in the workplace, and like, you go about that differently depending on where you are. But I'm a person who's very much like, that's something I won't tolerate. And I just have known at least my base level of my worth to know when to walk away from certain situations and things that are no longer serving me. And as I grow in my career, I'm just learning that like there's like different level of organizations. Like this like your baseline, I'm organized, then it's like I'm super organized, and then it's like your elite organization. And I feel like I'm like growing onto that. And like some principles that I've applied to that is like you're consistently growing because you're consistently on a journey. And like I have to credit Dan for that. Like he's all about the process and the journey. And like I was one of those people who are like, let's get to the end result. Like I need to see the success of whatever I put my energy into. And he's like really, him and Carly, who is like my manager, have really like instilled in me like trust the process, enjoy the process, and learn from the process. Don't just fly through it because you'll miss the most important parts.
Spoken like a true UX researcher. Every piece there, I'm just like, yes, impact, impact, impact. That's all I hear.
Yeah.
I also got goosebumps with how raw you were there and like talking really to how the experiences you've gone through. So thanks for candidly sharing that.
Of course.
And kind of navigating to more challenges. Could you tell me a little bit about office politics and strategies to navigate those kinds of challenges?
I think it really depends on what the office is that you're at. With creative people, I don't feel like there's like office politics really. Like, where's like it's such a like chill but respectful environment that I don't really think like I've ever come across those kind of issues where I had to like strategize how to navigate through them. In the past, it's definitely been kind of like stating my ground and stating my claim kind of thing. And how I navigate through them is also just by making sure I take care of myself. Like, people don't realize that when you go through things, even if you don't realize it in that moment, it can be traumatic, and you need to like you need to take care of yourself after those incidents happen, right? And one way that I've navigated through them is that I learned to like say something, like, and it's like the corniest, cheesiest thing that people always say is like, if you see something, say something. If you feel something, say something. But like, literally, you feel so much freer after you say something. So like, I think that's a great strategy to navigate things. Like, when it comes to office politics, like if you feel kind of way about something, say something. If you want something to be changed, like because you really feel like it's best for the greater of the company or the greater of people who work around you, say something.
I feel like it's like a simple statement, and then I think the weight of that statement, you never know the impact of what you could say and how that could impact others.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you so much for sharing. I think that was great, especially I think for myself as someone who's like about to graduate soon as an emerging, professional into the workforce. Sometimes there's a lot of challenges to navigate there. And that's like great pieces of advice I will definitely write down after this conversation today. And I think like speaking of like a job hunting process, I think one key part is fostering those relationships with folks that you're networking, whether it's like the professionals in the field that you desire or like the recruiters themselves. When it comes to like fostering a relationship with recruiters, especially in terms of a long-term relationship, beyond just like that one coffee chat as an intro meeting, what are some pieces of advice that you have there about that?
I mean, just being yourself and not being afraid to follow up. Sometimes like a recruiter's life is very hectic and crazy, just like yours. I never want to take away how crazy people are. Like I even like I'll follow up with like as the kind of recruiter that I am, like if I haven't heard from you in like a couple days or a week, I'm like, hey, just bumping this up, making sure you're okay. And just remember that there's a personal like human aspect to this all. Like we're all humans and we're all going through things. Like sometimes things can happen in a blink of a moment and like recruiters can't get back to you, right? Like it could be something very personal. But like be respectful with your check-ins, keep them updated. I think that's another thing. Like you don't know sometimes the background work the recruiter's doing. Maybe they're not communicating like, hey, I've been on a constant search around what you told me you're looking for. I haven't found anything. So like also be proactive, right? And being like, hey, so it's been a week. I just want to check in. Any news, any updates? Also just like sending them like maybe an updated portfolio or like having even more coffee chats and getting to really know them on a personal level, because the best way someone can represent you is if they actually know you. So that means like spending a little bit more time with them and like really immersing them into your world and like showcasing the best parts of you to them. And so that they can do the same as well. So you guys can have that relationship for like years out.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you. And for the listeners on the folks that are listening right now, if they are interested in going into like the recruiting field, what is some advice that you might have for them, and what is the current market looking like for that as well?
Advice is definitely organization is key. If you're not organized, it's really hard to be a recruiter. Time management is key as well. And just caring. I think like a lot of people get into jobs to just have a job. And I think you need to really care as a recruiter. but also know when to set like a boundary with yourself. Like you can't get too attached because you don't want to like be like devastated, because sometimes like you're not actively hiring someone for a specific role. You're like helping a company find someone, right? And I can think you're the most amazing candidate and the company can feel completely opposite. And like, we're going to get crushed. People don't realize that, but recruiters, we cry. We're going to shed some tears. But like, we have to get up and like still have that hard conversation with you, or like still try to advocate, like, okay, tell me what made you feel this way? Like, how can we like eliminate any like worries or doubts that you may have? And so like, you have to have a thick skin and like strong boundaries to like be a recruiter. And that's something I'm still learning, because I'm like very much like, I pour my heart and soul into things, which you always should if you're really passionate about it, but also knowing when to be like, yep, but this is also just the truth of the matter. And then for your other question, the market right now is so crazy. It's no secret. There's been, I don't even know how many layoffs, but there's just as many job openings. And it's very confusing for someone who may be new into the job market to like navigate. And that's why I think like having a recruiter will help with that process. Shameless plug. But also the hiring process, what I've been hearing, what I've been noticing is that it's getting to be sometimes a little bit more, either more lengthier or more in depth, right? Because people are starting to understand the weight of investing in the right person, not just because they look good on paper, but like because that person is actually good for the business. And I think it's a pivotal point in the market, because a lot of people have been getting hired based off of like things that are just on paper, and then, you know, not, no shade, no tea, maybe not performing up to par. And we have a lot of people who have never been given the opportunity, but had you given that to them, they would perform like no other. And so I think in this market, it's allowing those people who are usually considered the underdogs to come out and like really showcase their strengths and be on top. And I think that it's just going to give a lot of people the awakening of like really making sure you know who you're hiring and their capabilities.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you so much. That was great advice. I'll pass it on to Simran.
Yeah, that's awesome for sharing kind of like how the market is right now. Like I think like as like candidates right now, it's like super stressful in the sense of like you hear about layoffs and you hear about different things, but it's cool to see like if people are like performing and they're like really like showcase their like strengths and then their like abilities, like they're being recognized as well through some certain companies as well.
Yeah.
Right now we're also trying to like kind of see like how we can help students at different stages of their careers like land like the role they want as well. And so like just diving into that more, we had like a few questions around recruiting we wanted to like debunk, and we're hoping for your help around there.
Yeah.
Cool. So you mentioned this a little bit earlier through like different avenues, you know, to explore UX and then like, you know, land that full-time position. So like say one of us is, you know, interested in creative work, specifically UX design. And we started creating portfolio, freelancing. Then now we're like looking to apply, but we're like, you know, we're thinking, what even makes it like a good UX portfolio or like strong candidate, you know, second guessing ourselves. Could you shed some light around those two?
Yeah, absolutely. Great portfolios are very clean, concise, and showcasing. Like those are like the three things I like to say to like everybody that I support. So you want a clean portfolio, meaning that everything is like legible, easy to read. It's very seamless. Think you guys are UX researchers. Think like you're on a page and you want to navigate this super, super easy. Like that's how your portfolio should be. Like one click buttons, maybe 1 to 3 clicks. Like you want to get it down to like if somebody was like basically like like not mindlessly scrolling on Instagram, but like the same kind of actions of how easy it is to like go through Instagram and see things and then like highlight what you like. And so that's what I mean by like clean. Instagram sometimes isn't the cleanest, you know, they switch things up all the time, but yeah, clean, concise, just making sure you're hitting key points. You know, in a portfolio, you want like a high touch overview kind of situation, right? You don't want to be like too specific. You want to leave room for you to be able to talk about things that are not just on your deck or on your slide or on your website, right? You want to be able to showcase that you know what you're talking about and you can walk through your processes and your thought process. And yeah, so I think those are like the top two. And then I definitely think like showcasing your work is being able to explain your methodologies and your like why you chose your methodologies. What would you do differently given a different budget? You know, how can you further this research? Those are things that like definitely should be showcased as well. And they don't have to be super long. Some of them don't even have to have like their own slides. I feel like if you do it in a way that's very like sleek and concise, like I was saying, like it can be showcased and you can get through, let's say like 1 to 2 case studies or 1 to 2 projects within the interview process. And just in general building a good portfolio that can give you also like variety of like whether it's industries or methods, because there's a lot of people who are just learning about UX research, right? Sadly, but like if you're able to showcase other research methods that they haven't even heard of, they might be like, oh, that's a great idea. I definitely need somebody to do this for my company.
Nice. Thanks so much for sharing those like insights around like how recruiting works. I really like the analogy of like think about it like it's like an app and like someone's navigating it. Like how can you make the usability like easy like that? Everyone can kind of relate to that analogy as well. I think one thing I was like kind of curious as well, like updating a bit of the scenario. This is, I guess, like getting in the door. And now say you're in the door and they're like looking at your portfolio, really like you, I guess, as well. In your experience, like what are some like, you know, those intangibles and tangibles you've noticed about candidates? It could be like they respond certain ways in behavioral questions or, you know, they have like these ways of talking about different things. Just want to like get some more insight, like once they're in the interview process, what have you noticed kind of like helps them like stand out or just look a little bit more experienced in the field as well?
Something that helps you stand out is definitely the way that you're able to communicate, not only with like your initial screening person or the hiring manager, but with the rest of the team, right? So cross-functional communication is very important, especially as a UX researcher, being able to like discuss your research at a high level, as well as like sometimes, you know, having to quote unquote dumbing it down for people to understand what you're doing. Just because there are some people who just like want to hear the numbers, like just give me what the KPIs were. And there's some people who are like, wait, how did you get this? Like, walk me through this process. Like, I want to understand deeply. And that's something that's definitely going to make you stand out if you're able to do like both ends of the spectrum. Something else is just making sure that, you know, you really understand the kind of culture that that company has. And if you're a good fit for that culture, you can tell during the kind of conversations that you guys are having when you're talking to the rest of the team and things like that. Your foot could be in a door and it could be the wrong door. So like make sure you're stepping through the right door. That's like a little tidbit. And then like honestly, people don't realize, but like that something like that, being able to like understand that you're walking into the wrong door could actually help you be a stronger candidate somewhere else. Like there has been times where people have been like, hey, I don't think they're a good fit for my company, but like my friend works at, let's say, quote unquote Etsy, right? And like this, like they'll fit better like at Etsy's culture. Like you can then create opportunities for people to be like, this was a strong candidate. They may not be a good fit for my company and my culture, but like they're a great candidate. Let me refer them somewhere else.
Gotcha. Yeah, those are super insightful. And I really like kind of how you broke that stat down. I'll pass on to Roshni.
Awesome. Yeah, I was kind of like listening in there thinking, I wonder if that's happened before when you go into a job interview and then someone just refers you to somewhere else and you're like, well, I never even thought that could be a opportunity or a possibility. So you never know, I guess. Expect the unexpected.
Exactly.
For those listening who are in the process of applying to jobs in UX design or research, what advice would you share with our listeners, like when it comes to salary negotiations or talking about your resources and the experiences you bring forward?
Those are definitely great like things to touch on when they ask, like, do you have any other questions at the end of your interview? Definitely say like, what does your company's runway look like? You know, I think it depends on like how you ask the question, but like those are great times to touch on those things. If you're not working with a recruiter and salary comes up, make sure that you understand like at least what the market value is, but also what like your value is, and then also what your value is for leveling. So a lot of people, I don't think I've ever really heard of this, but like this was something that I did when I was like applying to jobs. I was like, okay, what is like, people usually take what the market value is and what they believe they should get paid, and they try to look for something in the middle there. But I like to take like what the market value is what the market value is for a male, what the what level I'm at and what they're getting paid, and then like what is the absolute lowest number I wouldn't go below. And then I kind of like do a math problem because I'm very like strategic sometimes, and like get an average number and then say, okay, this is my range. The lowest number I would absolutely not go below, and what that average number is, and always gun for more, Avi, but like making sure that you kind of like understand when you're going into that conversation exactly what your numbers are. A lot of people like to say like, I don't want to put a range because, I don't want to box myself in. If you're working with the right kind of company and the right recruiter, the kind of numbers that you're discussing shouldn't box you in. Like there are still good people out there who will be like, okay, the number they gave is this, but I believe they need to be leveled out at that until you could possibly get higher. But there are other people out there who will take what you say and like run with it. So absolutely make sure you just do your homework when you go into like salary negotiations.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that tidbit. I had an old boss who shared with me the other day that she asked for some kind of band 2 and they actually came back to her with band 7. So transparency sometimes is nice when someone has your back on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you for that. I think like whether you are in the process of job hunting, as we were already talking about earlier, or you are currently already in a job and you're looking for your next opportunity, I think the buzzword networking always comes up. Do you have any advice there in terms of how folks can go about that?
About networking in itself? Yeah.
Networking in itself, or maybe they're nervous to network or they don't know what to do next. What any advice you have there?
Yes. So believe it or not, when I first started out, I was terrified to network. Like I was just like, this is a stranger danger. Like, why would they want to talk to me? What do I say? Like, how does this go? If you're someone who like is really nervous about it, start off with a compliment. I realized that like it's so much easier to start talking to a person once you like, and like a genuine compliment. Like if you see their shoes, just like, oh my goodness, like I really like your shoes. I'm like, thank you. 9 times out of 10, that thank you will turn into, I like something of yours too. And then you're like, oh my gosh, you're so sweet. And the conversation just starts flowing. And then try to get like really important information out of them. I think it's a little bit easier in the era that we live in just because everyone wants to know what people's signs are. So it's like really easy to get a birthday. I think that's really important to have. So you can like always tell somebody happy birthday. I think it's also really important to have 2 main takeaways from like the conversation as well. And there's sometimes people will drop things that you don't even like, they subconsciously drop things. So like, yeah, I also like, oh, I have a dog upstate too. Like, so like when it's like National Dog Day, you can be like, happy National Dog Day, right? And like other people will be like, that's really weird, that's really extra, but being extra is how you keep connections. Like making sure that that person feels remembered and like you reaching out will really like go so far. And then if you're someone who's like really a people person and loves to be around people and really like enjoys talking to people, then you're the kind of person who like can go up to someone and be like, hi, oh my goodness, like I like if you do your research before the networking event of like who, it's kind of like stalking, but I don't like to use that word, but it's like literally like who's gonna be there, where do they work? LinkedIn is the best kind of like landing page for that you can be like, oh my goodness, like we follow each other on LinkedIn. I remember you worked at L'Oreal. That's so crazy. Like it was one of my like favorite companies. It got me through. There was like an on-campus person, like a student brand ambassador at my school, and they'd be like, oh my goodness, yeah, we ran that project. Like we had this project launched for a couple of years now, and like it's really easy to start getting into that network. And then you can start inviting people for like coffee chats or like a drink and things like that. Networking is really what you make it, and you can take any type of avenue professionally and respectfully, then you can gain an even wider network with a more trusted group of people.
Yeah, for sure. No, thanks for that. I think that's definitely made demystified, I think, networking for sure, add a very more human touch to it. So that's much appreciated. I'll pass on to Ritika.
Yeah, for sure. This conversation has been awesome, and our team has learned so much from you today. And we thank you so much for your time. We have a final rapid fire round where we go into 1 word or 1 sentence answers. Are you ready for this?
Yes, I'm a little nervous, but yes.
Awesome. So who is your ideal applicant?
One sentence: smart, determined, communicative, and transparent.
What is one really bad piece of advice?
Oh, don't talk money during your interview process. It's not about what you say, it's about how you say it.
Okay. What are some words of wisdom from a mentor or someone else that's always stayed with you?
Focus on the journey and the process just as much as your outcomes.
What's the most important thing for a successful career in UX?
The willingness to learn.
Which one would you choose? Great experience, but culture misfit, or great culture fit, but no experience?
Culture fit with no experience. You can't learn how to be a part of something that you're not a part of.
Okay. And what's next for you? Are there any upcoming projects that you'd like to share or anything else that you're doing on the side?
Absolutely. I have a makeup collection launch coming February 4th. I'm super excited about. We have our design event in New York coming up August 17th. And yeah, I think that's about it for now. Oh, and graduation should be coming spring of next year.
Lots of amazing things happening.
Thank you.
Well, good luck to you. And I'll pass it on to Rosh.
Yeah, you were like Wonder Woman. Thank you so much, Khaliya, for the UX Lounge is so grateful for your time, and we wish you a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you have a happy Wednesday and a great rest of your week.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So this brings us to the end of today's episode, Navigating UX Hiring at the UX Lounge. If you're looking to learn more, follow us on our social media handles. And until next time, your favorite UX crew, Roshni, Joyce, Ritika, and Simran.